All right. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to bring this meeting to order. Monday, August 16th, 2021. We'll start tonight with the invocation and pledge. We have Pastor Harold Thomas III from Shiloh Seventh-day Adventist Church at 810 Church Street. I'd invite you up, Pastor, now, and everybody please rise.
All right, let us pray. Dear Lord, you are the shepherd, leader, and guide for nations. We thank you for the privilege and opportunity to serve this community. We ask for your spirit of wisdom, understanding, counsel, power, knowledge, discernment, and reverence for you and respect for all to be present this evening. We are acquainted with the decisions tonight. You're acquainted with the decisions tonight. May the decisions be in line with your will. Please protect this city with the decisions that they make today and in the future, and this county. Keep it safe from disaster, disease, disorder, and disruption. May your promise of peace rest upon all tonight. Amen. Now the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor, for being with us this evening. Appreciate you. Item 2 is agenda changes. We have one for item 2021-340 under the consent agenda. This is for the approval of the extended work hours and the road closure on Roswell Street. This Saturday, August 21st, they're changing that to August 28th, the following Saturday. So that'll be on the consent agenda. We don't need to vote on that, just announcing that that's added to the agenda. Item 3 is the mayoral report. I don't have a report tonight. I am excited about a lot of the activity going on in the city with different task forces made up of citizens that are working on different things, whether that's the details of the downtown redesign. The Arts and Culture Task Force is working on an arts district and a performing arts center that'll be close to be presented as something to do close to downtown. The Mobility Committee is looking at different mobility options around town. We're beginning the initial phases of the South Cobb Drive plan and have been a full court press with the Department of Transportation and others to get federal and state funding, especially with the new infrastructure bill moving through Congress. So excited there. The aquatics facility, we're in the initial phases of that. So a lot of good things to come. Stay tuned for a lot of big announcements and good things on the way. Item 4 is land issues, zonings, and annexations. 4A, 2021-278, that's a public hearing, zoning request Z21-009. Allow rezoning from R15 to RDA conditional for 2 single-family detached homes at a density of 5.18 units per acre. Land lot 486, 1084 Medlin Street with Kimberly Norwood Properties, LLC. Mr. Bennett, the background, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The applicant is requesting a rezoning from R15 to RDA conditional for the development of 2 single-family detached units at a density of 5.18 units per acre. A land use change from medium-density residential is not required for this rezoning. The Planning and Zoning Board recommended approval by a vote of 5-0 at the July 12th, 2021 meeting. Community Development recommends approval of this rezoning with conditions. Mr. Stobbs.
And this is in Travis Lindley's district. I failed to mention at the beginning, Mr. Glenn Pickens and Travis Lindley are both traveling tonight and are unable to be with us. Joey?
Good evening. This is zoning case C21-009. Applicant is Kimberly Norwood Properties. As was mentioned, the Planning and Zoning Board recommended approval 5-0 at the July 12th meeting. This is the zoning map of the surrounding area. You can see it's R15 surrounded by RDA. Several corner lots have been split like this one that are zoned RDA, so it'll be similar to those. There's 1 single-family house on the property now, and proposal is to subdivide it for 2 single-family detached houses. The land use is medium density residential. It'll remain medium density residential. It'll be below 4.5 units per, or 6 units per acre, sorry. This is the proposed site plan. Right now, it's one lot, and the proposal is to subdivide it for a 7,200 square foot lot and a 8,800 square foot lot. It'll have the RDA setbacks up front 25, the street side on Hollis of 13, the internal side is 5, and the rear is 30. There'll be front entry garages off Medlin Street. And the proposal is to have stormwater detention at the front of the lots. There'll be 5-foot right-of-way dedication along Hollis Street, and then sidewalk along the Medlin Street and Hollis Street. There's 2 variances, one for lot size from 7260 to 7201, and one for side setback reduction from 16.5 to 13 feet. That's consistent with other rezonings that have been approved in this area. These are the 2 proposed elevations. And a picture of the subject property as it is today and surrounding properties. The staff recommends approval of the rezoning from R15 to RDA for 2 single-family units at a density of 5.18 units per acre with the following conditions. Standard conditions: 1, regarding the architecture; 2, that utilities are underground; 3, they're responsible for traffic improvements; 4, 5, 6, 7, they have cannot bury debris on the lots, and then they have to follow the city's tree ordinance. Special conditions regarding the RDA setbacks, as mentioned. 9, minimum lot size. 11, minimum lot width of 50 feet. 12, minimum driveway length of 22 feet. 13, requiring the sidewalk. 14, maximum height of 35 feet. 15, the responsible fire access requirements. 16, water and sewer improvements. 17, they're responsible for any stormwater improvements. 18 and 19 ties them to the site plan and the elevations submitted with the application. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? The council.
Yeah, if I could, I know Councilman Lindley would like to be here, but he's stuck in Florida due to, I guess, Tropical Storm Fred is keeping him from getting back. But Joey, a couple questions that Travis wants to make sure are clarified. Could you just talk about the stormwater detention and how that affects the trees?
Yeah, that will not affect the trees. The issue at the beginning was the detention was underneath the driveways. They have shifted those so they're not under the driveways anymore. The trees in that area were already going to be removed. So that adjustment has not changed anything with regarding the tree removal.
Gotcha. So what we're showing here is different than what we looked at on Thursday. This is the
Right.
yeah the newer current
Correct.
layout. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Is the applicant here? Would you like to say anything?
How do I bring it up?
I just wanted to make you get up, Scott, that's all. City attorney broke his foot exercising, so.
Hey, I'm John Norwood with Kimberly Norwood Properties. We've done a few projects over here in the past, and this is just another project which we think will help out with the city and with the growth.
Hi, I'm Sean Murphy. I'm the landscape architect and the planner for Mr. Norwood. You guys have seen us before. We've come before you for almost exactly the same type of split in this same neighborhood, and you've previously approved that. So we're hoping to continue to do that in the neighborhood and take what's been a rental house for many years and turn it into two new homes with 2 permanent residents, and that's always been a good thing so far. I'd like to take a second and address a couple of things. We don't have a big presentation or anything, but to answer some questions about the first plan that we submitted showed the BMP, which was for water quality underneath the driveways, about 2/3 under the driveways and 1/3 out. And we were trying to stay out of the trees that are on the corner here. Turns out those trees actually are all sick. There's 3 dogwoods that are dead or dying. They're hollow in the middle. They all have dogwood and anthracnose. Some of you know I'm also an ISA arborist. And there's a big pine at the corner that's got a giant knot at the bottom, and there's about 3 feet of exposed core wood that's totally dead. That tree needs to be cut down today. And then there's one other tree it's a pine tree, and it's totally one-sided. So all those are going to be impacted a little bit by their root zones. So we're just planning to take them all out in that front corner. There are some trees that are remaining in the back. So the change that you're seeing between the first plan submitted a month or so ago and what was submitted a week ago is that we had to address your code change. There's been a recent code change in the last couple of years that doesn't allow the BMPs to be underneath the driveways anymore, where previously they were. And I didn't know that when I did the design, and so now I do, so I apologize for that. But basically, we just reconfigured the shape and size. It's still the same volume. It was wider and shallower. Now it's deeper and longer. But it's still the same amount of pipes and gravel. It's all underground, so you're not going to see it. It's one of the things I've been trying to fight to get us to maybe think about changing on when we do these little small splits, is not making people do the full stormwater detention pond and allow us to do these underground detention facilities. So that's what you're seeing. That's the main difference in this. The other thing is just point of specific details in the new plan, because we donated the 5 feet of right-of-way that you requested. The setbacks are actually from the new right-of-way less than 13 feet. So if we're doing it from the existing. Yeah, from the existing. Okay. And I think that the same thing with the lot width. You can see it's 44 feet and not 50 because of that 5-foot dedication. Did you have any questions?
Any questions of the applicant? All right, thanks, gentlemen. This is a public hearing. If there anybody here who'd like to speak for or against this item, please come up and be sworn in now. All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Gould for Mr. Lindley on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and just want to thank Norwood, John Norwood, right? Thanks so much for doing the project, and Sean, of course, as always, for your work. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I move to approve item 4A 2021-278 as previously read.
Have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Mr. Welch. All those in favor, please vote. And that's approved 5-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Item B, 2021-348. This is a public hearing. Variance 21-081. Reduce the required distance from a school from 600 feet to 220 feet for new wine and malt beverage pouring licenses. Lot 345, 2579 South Cobb Drive, Kay's Cuisine, LLC. Mr. Bennett, the background, please.
Yes, sir. The applicant is requesting to reduce the required distance from a school for new wine and malt beverage pouring licenses at 2579 South Cobb Drive. The previous Vittles restaurant is being remodeled for a new restaurant called Kay's Cuisine. Section 6-118 of the city's Code of Ordinances controls the minimum required distances for alcohol licensees. The applicant is requesting to deviate from the city's required distance from a school for new wine and malt beverage pouring licenses. According to Section 1403 of the zoning ordinance, variances must be reviewed under the following standards. 1, whether there are unique and special or extraordinary circumstances applying to the property. 2, whether any alleged hardship is self-created by any person having an interest in the property. Or 3, whether strict application of the relevant provisions of the code would deprive the applicant of reasonable use of the property. And 4, whether the variance proposed is the minimum variance needed. Community Development has reviewed the request against the variance review standards and found them to be in compliance with the review standards. Community Development believes that the requested variances will not adversely affect surrounding properties. Therefore, Community Development recommends approval of the requested variance.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. This is in Ward 5. Ms. Wilkinson, Rusty, did you have anything that wasn't included in the background that you'd like to?
No, real quickly, just to show you, just a survey of the site. This is the location of the subject property. The school is immediately to the north across Glendale Place, and it's approximately 220 feet from there. The city, a little while ago, a few years ago, granted a waiver from this distance requirement as well for beer and wine to the property, two properties to the south, and it was a similar request. This is the old Vittles restaurant. You can see from the pictures of the site, and there's a steep hill and a drainage area behind this that back up to the residential properties and then some adjoining properties around. Community Development is supportive of the request. I don't think it's going to cause an adverse impact on the adjoining properties or the school. If it begins to do so, we also got provisions in the ordinance that we can, in the privilege license and alcohol ordinance, that we can use to address those issues as well.
Any questions of Rusty? I'd like to invite the applicant up. And if you'll be sworn in by our city attorney. Welcome.
Thank you.
Anything you'd like to say about your business or?
Yeah. Case Cuisine is a West African restaurant.
Can you, excuse me, it's a little bit hard to hear. Can you just stand a little closer to the microphone? Thank you.
You move it up a little if you need to.
Yeah.
Case Cuisine is a West African restaurant. We deal on the African food, and we're applying for the variance to sell the wine and beer, because that's going to increase our sales like with 40%, because the food we're about to sell, it goes with the alcohol, with the wine, and it's like a combo. So that's why we're applying for this.
Ms. Aditi, is that correct? Can you tell us about your restaurant, the food and the hours and things like that, and how long,
the African food, specifically the Nigerian food, is in like a organic food, and it's really proteinous. It's very healthy, and we moved into Smyrna because we noticed they don't have any of it in the city right here. So that's why we're coming here for the investment. And the food is healthy. We're going to be making the breakfast, which will be opening at 8 to 9. 8 in the morning to 9 p.m. That's our opening and closing time.
Any other questions of the applicant? Thank you. This is a public hearing. If there's anybody who'd like to speak for or against this variance, if you come forward now and be sworn in. Come on up and be sworn in.
My name is Harold Thomas. Just a quick question. The restaurant is near what type of school? Elementary, junior high, or high school?
It's Belmont Elementary.
Elementary school. Okay. And you've granted this petition for another restaurant to reduce the distance to schools?
As if I understand it correctly, there's one that's 200, and this would be 220 20 feet, and there's one 2 doors down, which is basically another 200
It's
200 feet away.
150 to 500 feet away from the school. The requirement is 600 feet from the school.
Okay. Is this only unique in this particular area of South Cobb, or are there other areas where you reduce the limit close to elementary schools?
This was the only one we found with respect to this particular school. We didn't review any other schools.
I just happened to walk in today. I'm just curious about putting certain things near elementary schools in certain neighborhoods, and I'm just wondering, has that been a pattern? And I'm not against the restaurant at all. It's just I'm wondering about alcohol close to the school districts and the availability of more than one. And we've added another restaurant in the same neighborhood, reduced the distance. I'm not against it, but I was just wondering about the pattern and what we're doing in that particular community and having that availability. Just a question of curiosity. I guess I'll do my own research to see. It doesn't matter now. It's about to be approved. How many other liquor stores or any other availabilities in that same plaza, same area, same community, same school? That's just my opinion. Just looking out. Thank you for answering the questions.
Could you state your name again? I didn't catch it.
Harold Thomas III.
Okay, thank you.
All right, no problem. Sorry.
All right, any discussion, Ms. Wilkinson?
I just want to welcome you to the city. I'm looking forward to having your restaurant in Ward 5, and I do, have some concerns because of the location near the elementary school, but I also think we need some successful restaurants in the Ward 5 and on South Cobb Drive, and I look forward to having your restaurant in Ward 5. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, Ms. Wilkinson?
Okay, at this time, I move to approve item 4B 2021-348 for V21-081 to reduce the required distance from a school from 600 feet to 220 feet for the new wine and malt beverage pouring license, Lot 345-2579 South Cobb Drive, Case Cuisine, LLC.
We have a motion and seconded by Dr. Wheaton. All those in favor, please vote. Now that Tim has voted, it's approved 5-0. Thank you very much. We look forward to you doing business in Smyrna. Moving to item C, 2021-336. This is a public hearing. This is an appeal on the approval by the License and Variance Board, B21-058, reduced side setback from 12 feet to 7 feet for a detached garage, Lot 556 at 3393 Pretty Branch Drive. Bradley Craig Anderson appealed the approval of License and Variance Board request V21-059, increase accessory building height from 15 feet to 18.8 feet, Lot 556, 3393 Pretty Branch Drive. Bradley Craig Anderson, and the appeal of the approval of License and Variance Board request V21-060, increase accessory building size from 25% to 41%, Lot 556 at 3393 Pretty Branch Drive. Bradley Craig Anderson, by the adjacent neighbor Cheryl Miller, who resides at 3405 Pretty Branch Drive, Southeast Smyrna, Georgia 30080, as filed with the City Clerk's Office on Friday, July 23rd, 2021, at 6:57 p.m. via electronic email. Mr. Bennett, the background, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The requester, Cheryl Miller of 3405 Pretty Branch Drive, Smyrna, Georgia 30080, is seeking to appeal the approval at License and Variance Board of 3 variances to construct a detached 2-car garage in the rear of the of 3393 Pretty Branch Drive. Also to reduce the side setback from 12 feet to 7 feet, increase the accessory building height from 15 feet to 18.8 feet, and increase the accessory building size from 25% to 41% of the primary dwelling. The maximum accessory structure size and height is required based upon the standards associated with Section 501 of the zoning code, whereas the 12-foot setback is associated with Section 801 of the zoning code. The applicant, Bradley Craig Anderson, has requested and was approved to deviate from the development standards established by the city for the maximum accessory structure size of 25% of the main structure, the maximum accessory structure height of 15 feet, and the side setback of 12 feet. According to Section 1403 of the zoning ordinance, variances must be reviewed under the following standards. Number one, where there are unique or special or extraordinary circumstances applying to the property. Two, whether any illegal alleged hardship is self-created by any person having an interest in the property. Number three, whether strict application of the relevant provisions of the code would deprive the applicant of reasonable use of the property. And four, whether the variance proposed is the minimum variance needed. Community Development has reviewed the request against the variance review standards and found it to be in compliance with 4 of the 4 standards.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. This is in Mr. Gould's ward. Mr. Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure what the appropriate next step is. Rusty, you want to say a few words? Thanks.
I've got a small presentation so y'all can see what the License and Variance Board saw when they heard the request. This is the proposed site plan. Pretty Branch is on the left-hand side of the property. There's a driveway along the southern border with the house that's located towards the rear of the property. With this request, Joe's gone over it. You've got the 3 variance requests, the side setback reduction from 12 feet to 7 feet, an increase in building height from 15 feet to 18.8 feet, and then an increase in the size of the accessory structure from 25% to 41%. Staff supported and the License and Variance Board approved all 3 of those variances back at the License and Variance Board hearing. This is the existing house, existing driveway, and then this is the location of the proposed detached garage. As you look at the property from the street, there's a dry riverbed, stone riverbed that runs from the northeast side of the property all the way to the southwest side of the property until it hits an inlet and goes under the driveway. In talking to Mr. Anderson, we placed a zoning condition on the property, or a variance condition on the property during the hearing, that he's got to direct all stormwater drainage, keep it on his site, and not affect the adjoining property owner to the south, which he agreed to. This would be in concept of how the drainage would go and where it would go on the property. This is the adjoining property to the south, Ms. Cheryl's property, and just give you context of where the proposed detached garage is going to be located. And then Ms. Cheryl's got a carport that's more or less 6 to 7 feet off the property line, depending on which corner of the carport you're looking at. This is the proposed accessory structure. It's a 2-car detached garage. It has unfinished floor area in the second floor. It's approximately 1,600 square feet. The floor area on the second floor is unheated. Our code does not stipulate or make mention as to whether unheated floor area counts towards the overall floor area of the building. To be conservative, we thought we'd include it and make it a variance request so it's clear as to what's going on the property. Here's the subject property, the house, and then the driveway and the proposed location of the detached garage, and then adjacent properties. With this request, we're recommending approval of the proposed variances with 4 variances, or 4 stipulations. First being the approval of the variance is conditioned upon substantial compliance with the site plan and elevation submitted with the application. Number 2, gutters and downspouts will be installed to divert stormwater away from the adjacent properties. Number 3, the proposed garage shall not be rented or occupied for gain. Number 4, these conditions shall run in perpetuity with the property, and as such are also applicable to the future owners. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Rusty?
Can we look at the picture of the photo that you put up there of the house with the garage again, please?
With the house with the
The
garage?
house, yeah, I just wanted to see that, the photo, the way it sits.
Hold on one second. Let me go back.
Let's see.
This one?
So this is the one, and that's where the garage will be, right there.
At the end of
foot
that driveway.
way.
There's a 2-car garage that goes into the house on the left-hand side. It's a side entry garage that's existing right now. And this will be a detached garage that'll be at the end of the driveway.
Okay. So I guess what I'm noticing is it sits on the hill there, so the natural flow of the water will be toward the front
Yes.
with the dry creek bed there.
And you can see in that left-hand photo the creek bed that runs through the property.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions of Rusty? All right. I'd like to invite the applicant up. Mr. Anderson?
Hey, good evening.
Anything you'd like to say? Any questions anybody has of the applicant?
Sure. Thanks for being here today, and I know you've done a lot of work on your property and put a lot of effort into this. Sure, go ahead. Yep.
No problem.
Sorry, Scott, trying to give you a break there.
Guess we'll start over to get it in the record now that you're sworn in.
No problem.
I know. But yeah, I appreciate. I know you've done a lot of work on your property, and it's a lovely house, and and the Forest Hills in general obviously is a beautiful place to live. So could you just tell a little bit about the purpose and what you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, just trying to build a secondary garage. My truck actually doesn't fit in my current garage. It was a tear down, if you will, back in 2017. We closed on the property in March of 18. Just looking to add additional garage space. I've actually had this plan created for almost 3.5 years now, while we've been just getting ready with life and getting ready to build it, and now it's the time, and we've just brought it forth, and been speaking with Ms. Miller about it over the years, and fortunately some of her evergreens that are adjoining our property are a lot taller now, that deter some of the visual concerns I know she had initially. Obviously stormwater with the development behind us I know is a big concern. Unfortunately that's really out of my control, but just really looking to gain some more garage space for our vehicles, for our family, and it's really the reason for the project.
Right. I know you and Ms. Miller have talked quite a bit over time. Could you tell us a little bit about the steps you've taken to mitigate some of her concerns?
Sure. The timing is one of the bigger things. When we initially spoke, I dug up some text messages and remember some discussions back in, when was it? Probably late 17. We were nearing completion. I had the drawings created. I think the date on them, Rusty may help me here. It was October of 17. And she was really concerned about the visual look from seeing it from her property, which I can certainly respect. There were some concerns about privacy. There was a window just formally drawn in on the drawings on her side of the property. I've elected to remove that just because I'm not looking to deter any privacy. So that window has been removed on her side. The evergreens that are actually on her property, they're not on mine, are 3 years bigger now, and they're very tall. I've actually created a mock-up board of the roof line and confirmed that they are at the top of the roof line at the moment, and will only get better with that. So that was, the timing was the biggest thing that I've tried to work with Ms. Miller on, was the, just, you know, we've deferred it for multiple years, and now we would like to move forward with it, and we're here. I know she's concerned with some of the home value, you know, devaluing her home. I mean, I can respect that, and, you know, she doesn't want to, she feels like it will devalue her home. You know, I would say that, you know, we see accessory structures on multiple lots and spaces in Smyrna, and in fact, I see her carport, you know, as Mr. Martin mentioned, on the side of my property. So, I mean, I would say that I've waited a good bit of time for this landscaping screen to get taller, so I think that shows that I've tried to do something to help the project move forward. The water management, I know that's a huge concern of everyone's. As Mr. Martin mentioned, we live on the hill. We installed that dry creek bed right when we moved in because we had a huge water problem. We've worked with our adjacent neighbors to the north, the Kays. We've piped in all their drainage to our dry creek bed. It runs across the property line into our dry creek bed. I've got probably 50% of my roof structure that's actually piped into the creek bed on the front of the house. The rear of the house comes around to the northeast and comes around to the creek bed eventually. But we've done everything we can on the hill. You know, I mean, we're doing as much as we can to mitigate it. I've turned all my existing downspouts towards the street, towards the driveway. It's a 14-foot wide driveway, and it brings the stormwater down towards that inlet. It probably gets over into the grass a little bit and gets in the inlet, but it eventually makes its way to the street. So I've done my best in my power to mitigate the stormwater. I understand.
So
that
your roof gutters, you expect all your roof gutters to discharge onto the driveway, ultimately getting down into your dry creek bed and not going to the back of the property, right?
if feasible, yes. Yes. There's some concern about trees I'm aware of, I've been made aware of. There are two real trees in play. There is a white oak that's right next to our kids' playground. We've elected to, one of the reasons for the side setback is we want to get it out of the critical root zone of that white oak. It's probably a 30-inch diameter white oak, and we are going to be relatively close to it. I've done a lot of research on keeping it. I don't want to lose the tree. I'd like to go on the record and say that. I don't want to lose that tree at all. It's a prominent tree.
You have the chair of the tree board here, so I'm sure she wants to hear
She's my
that
neighbor
also.
too.
Yes.
She lives across the street.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I don't want to lose that tree. We intend to hand excavate. Unfortunately, on that side of the property, it's going to be, or on that elevation, there's really not, it's just a small grade beam that'll need to be installed there in a footer for the structure. So we shouldn't need to do any heavy excavation around that tree. So I definitely don't want to lose that tree. There is a tree that, I don't know exactly on the survey, but it basically splits my property perfectly. Our privacy fence actually comes up to the middle of it. It's severely decayed and is leaning actually towards Mr. Martin's property and back towards the northeast. And it's close to the property, but its canopy is leaning over literally. It's probably I don't know what the angle would be, but it could potentially have a small impact to it. But I think I haven't had it formally surveyed, but if it would, from my very small knowledge of trees, it's very sick at the moment. It's got ivy growing all over it, and it's probably 10% of its canopy's left. So it may be minimally impacted, but it's probably 50-50 on my property. So that's what I like to say about the trees. Definitely want to keep the prominent white oak that's next to my kids' playground.
Thank you.
That's
The structure you're proposing to build is pretty substantial. The variances are noteworthy relative. So I do have sympathy for for your neighbor. I've been down. We used to live in a property where we were lower than our neighbors, and we had all sorts of water problems. So I get it, and I get the concern of a reasonable concern that somebody may have. But then you obviously have the, right to do what you want with your property within, we're going through this process as such. So, but I do appreciate you taking the steps to do everything you can, as far as I can tell, to, eliminate potential for particularly water issues, on Ms. Miller's property. So that's important, because if it does get passed, whatever you do, you just really have to make sure you don't have a detrimental effect on your neighbor's property. That's my personal opinion. So.
Sure. And just, for the record, the Article 8, 801, R20, we are technically, and please correct me, 35% of impermeable coverage on the property. Right now, from my estimation, we're going to be about 0.2016, so roughly 0.15 acres less than the allowable impermeable surface on our property. So fortunately, we have a 0.71 acre lot that helps us. That being said, out of the 0.20, I talked about my roof line diverting to the Dry Creek bed. We've done a lot to divert the existing gutters. So, and the majority of our property does come to that Dry Creek bed in the front. And, I would say out of that, at the end of it, out of that 0.2016, I'd argue that maybe half of that is impermeable that would even leave the rear of the property at a maximum. There's just no way.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
That's my.
I don't know if anybody else has any questions for.
Any other questions of the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to invite Ms. Miller or anybody else who'd like to speak for or against this item up to be sworn in.
Yes.
All right. Ms. Miller?
Hi. I'm really here today to talk about a couple of different things. One being the variances, which is why this appeal is here. But the second reason that I'm here today is to really respect.
Ms. Miller, could you get a little closer to the microphone for a moment, please?
Sure. So I'm really respectfully requesting this council to review and revise the municipal code for single-family, duplex, and detached structure development pertaining to stormwater runoff, and the soil erosion management, and that's under Chapter 46, Environment, and 304.7, Roofs and Drainage. The topography of the land in these residential districts and the pre-existing conditions on the adjacent properties really has to be considered. When we talk about the growth in the city now, you can look on the website and say we've had 7% growth and it's been within the 10 years, and where has it been? But the existing neighborhoods. You're not seeing these things pop up, and the website clearly says that. We are going to be continually faced with the challenge that we are today, that I am today, because I'm the downhill neighbor in this situation. If we don't stop now and identify that there are very different types of building structures that are being built today than they were in 1950. We've got the mansards, the peaks. We're talking about a lot more roof structure than there's ever been in the past, and certainly in some of these old neighborhoods. As we look at gables and all of that thing, we're also talking about the pitch of these roofs and the velocity of water that is coming off those roofs and out those drain spouts. I can't even begin to tell you the extremely costly repairs to mitigate these types of water problems when they do permeate your home. If you haven't had a basement problem, see me at the end of the meeting and I can talk to you all about the details of the men that jackhammer up your floor, put in the French drains and also the sump pumps to try and be able to mitigate some of these things. I'm not suggesting that that's going to happen in this particular situation, but this particular situation does have a negative effect on my property. In addition to that, foundations and basements, it's not covered under your homeowner's policy. Sorry, your problem. It's also not covered under your flood policy. That's the responsibility of the homeowner as well. because these things in the insurance companies are considered maintenance issues. So what I'm saying here is that the builders need to be responsible. We have got to evaluate this code and determine how we can mitigate these types of situations from occurring in our residential neighborhoods as this development continues on an ongoing basis. A land survey was not, at least it wasn't in my packet that I received from Mr. Anderson. And I think that this is critical information that the board has got to review. As I said, there's topography and many other pre-existing conditions. As mentioned by Mr. Martin, I am set back. My primary structure, my carport, is set back from the property line, the same side setback that we're talking about right now, 6 feet. Now, it does jet back after the carport, but the fact of the matter is I am 6 feet off that property line. Mr. Anderson is proposing that the structure be 7 feet off that same property line. The board has actually created a 13-foot difference between us going an alleyway between these two homes. I really want to say this is fraught with badness when it comes to good use of land management. Mr. Anderson is on 3/4 of an acre, I'm on 3/4 of an acre, but yet we're going to have 13 feet between these two structures. Not only that, it is 3 different variances that are in play with this. When you take Mr. Anderson's proposed garage, you push it to the very back corner of that property line. He has 5 windows up there, but it has the ability to look into the 27 windows that are across the back of my property. Now, we have a situation that I also want to kind of clarify with Rusty as well, and that is as it pertains to the Smyrna Tree Code. I know that detached structures are exempt from this code, but help me understand this. You know, it's important for someone to be able to have the ability to take down a tree, to put up their structure, put in a swimming pool. But help me understand, when I have planted 4 feet off of that property line, and now we're going to build structure directly 7 feet from it. These arborvitae are giant arborvitae. They're mature as well. I really don't know how this structure is going to affect those trees, but they are a buffer to this, any type of structure that Mr. Anderson builds. The elevation on my property drops 20 feet from that property line down. So when you view a 24-foot building, because that's what it is at 18.8, it looks like, standing in the middle of my yard, a 34-foot building. If you go down to the bottom of my yard, it's now a 44-foot building. Making sure that these trees survive gives me that buffer and also protects me from the pine tree development up the street. So I think these things, when we're looking at the 4 property lines and we're moving into this type of development, that we just absolutely need to build in how can we look at the adjacent properties as well and what kind of effect this will have. If the stipulation provided was gutters and downspouts will be installed to divert stormwater away from adjacent properties. And what I'm trying to say is this is really not enforceable because there is no code. So let's use this particular issue as the catalyst for creating some code and trying to define what is adequate in these types of situations. If he's going to be burying downspouts, if he's going to be creating French drains or catch basins, he has to dig in that 7-foot area that is now the setback. These trees are 4 foot away from the property line and they have a critical root zone of 20 feet at the moment. Like I said, they're giant arborvitae. They're supposed to grow to about 40 feet tall, probably halfway grown at this point. Why aren't we at this point deploying, you know, he shouldn't have the right to kill my trees because he's putting up a structure. So I think that those are some of the biggest frustrations that come along with that. And,
Hey,
and
Cheryl, could I?
Yes.
Could you, is it possible, the trees, you're preserving your trees, I understand that's important. Could you summarize a couple of the key points that are really important to you?
Yes. On the trees or?
Just in general, like, yeah.
In other words.
The height of the
I'm-
building, obviously.
In other words, I'm at my 5 minutes.
No,
is
no,
what
I'm just
you're
trying to-
tell
You
me.
have,
What
as
I-
much,
we
you
have-
have as much time as you need.
Yeah. It just, just trying to make it easy for us to understand what really the key issues are for you. So it's, I have a short attention span, so if you can
Understood.
help me out.
So this is a Tim Gould thing, not a you thing. You have as much time as you'd like. Well,
Mr. Anderson shared with you that he has had this dream of his garage from the time he built his house. He had the opportunity at the time he built his house, because they scraped it to the ground, to build any type of a home that he wanted. He was exempt from code at that point, whether it was setbacks or whatever. He didn't choose to build a house that had a 4-car garage. This was a choice of his. So now we're at a situation where we've got this detached garage that's his vision. It doesn't meet any of the codes other than materials. It ranks number 4 in the R20 district as having the most number of variances for a single property. I do not understand what is extraordinary, which is part of the requirement, to allow good use of his land if he builds it to code. It doesn't have to be 24 foot tall. You can park in a 15-foot garage, good use of your land. You know, the existing pad that he references in the beginning, where he wants to preserve it for this particular project, is actually 20 feet away from the property line. I don't think it's affecting his white oak either, but hey, it's been there 50 years. I seriously doubt that it is causing his white oak to die. But the reality is setback, privacy, trees, and most important is the water runoff, and no standards to be able to enforce the stipulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
anybody else want to speak? Ms. Martin? If you'll state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Sean Martin, and I am from 2884 Anderson Circle. So I speak, I guess if you were to say, am I for or against? What I'm for is Smyrna. And so there were a couple of issues that I heard in the deliberation of this variance request. A couple of things relate to building height and setbacks and tree removal. In terms of the building height, I really don't see any good rationale why the building height variance has to be exceeded. I heard a lot about everything else, but it still makes no sense, in my view, why that building structure has to be 2 feet taller than it already is. As it relates to setbacks, it's one thing when we have these projects, these properties, and we've got a lot of old properties that are grandfathered in and don't necessarily have to adhere to modern day setback requirements. I take issue with a new development that is acting like it is being grandfathered in, especially if there are parking facilities already on the property. And then I have to ask, as a former tree board member, why do we have exemptions like this when our goal is to preserve Smyrna trees? I recommend that any time you have a project that relates to the removal of our beautiful trees, that at a very minimum, all presentation material needs to show that. Because otherwise, it gives the false impression to the public that we're working with a clean slate when we're absolutely not. And especially when those removals are impacting an adjacent property. The final thing is apparently Paramount, the developer, is one of the reasons why there's a lot of watershed happening through the property. So all of those things are a lot of food for thought. I would strongly suggest that in honor of where we're headed as a city, to please table the issue and hear the concerns of the resident in question. Thank you.
Rusty, can you come back up for a second?
Rusty, can you pull back up the site plan?
Yeah, it's up. If they put it up.
The lady mentioned that there was the side setback, which is 7 foot apparently. Is there another building on the other side of her fence that's 6 feet away? I'm not seeing it on Google, but
It's the house. The house is the carport of the house is 6 feet away on this.
but we're going to be 30 feet behind that or somewhere thereabouts. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have both the survey of Ms. Sherrill's and this site plan together to tell exactly what that distance is between the structures. But yes, the detached garage is further back on the lot than where the existing
and just based
house
on the river or the creek that's been put in there with stone, it falls from the back of the lot to the front of the lot. Is that correct?
Yes, it goes from the east side, which is the back of the property, to the front of the subject property,
And
along towards Pretty Branch.
where is the applicant trying to take the water to?
He said, and I'm trying to make sure I say this correctly, most of it is all going to go down the driveway to the dry creek bed at the front of the property, or it potentially could go around the backside of the house into the creek bed, or the very rear of it. He said some of it may go towards the Martin property, which is to the east.
The lot looks like a large.
The undeveloped, or it's got a house on it, but the wooded lot to the east.
Beside the new development there.
Yes, there's a stream buffer that comes through that new development where the stormwater for the development ties into it
Okay.
and releases.
So the majority of the water is being taken care of. We're either bringing it down the driveway, some of it to the stream bed that he's created there, or a small amount going back to the other side of the undeveloped property behind it.
Yes, and I would like to clarify that prior to issuance of the building permit, we'll ask him to provide a plan as to how that's going to happen. If he's going to use his gutters and downspouts and go to the driveway, or where he's intending the water to go when it leaves the site.
Okay.
So it will be reviewed.
That's all I have.
Okay. I have a couple of questions, too. What is the square? I noticed that it's an increase in the size of the accessory structure that's allowed under the zoning, from 25% to 41%. Do you know the square footage of the garage or the accessory structure?
It's just over 1,600 square feet.
The accessory
It's
structure.
it has about a 900 square foot footprint,
Okay.
and then another 700 in the second floor.
Okay. Anyway, that's what I was wondering. And then also, what year was the house built?
There was an existing house on this property. They did a significant demolition, almost all the way down to the foundation. I can't remember if they left a couple exterior walls or whatnot, but then they rebuilt on the existing foundation and added on to it to build the existing house. So the location of the house was where the original house location was.
Okay, okay, and that was what year or what?
It was 2018.
Yeah.
2018, okay.
17, 18 is when they pulled the permit and finished.
Okay, and then I think what I heard him say that the overall impervious surface is less than the percentage that's required, like 30, I think it's 35%, is that right?
We looked at the overall percentage, it's under 35%. I don't remember off the top of my head exactly what percentage the addition puts the property at.
Okay, thank you.
Rusty, you, to answer one of Councilman Welch's questions, you indicated some water could go out the back to the Martins property. Could you just?
I think Mr. Anderson and Ms. Cheryl could probably talk to it, but I think once you get near that back property line, it falls off the hill towards the creek that's in the back there.
So that is just groundwater. That's not runoff from the building, right?
If everything is piped and the gutters are coming to the driveway, theoretically, yes, it should just be whatever's hitting the ground behind the property is whatever's surface flowing that way.
Okay. Can I ask Mr. Anderson to come back up? Got a couple of questions. Thank you, sir. So, Ms. Miller asked, raised a couple good points. I'd like to get your thoughts on them. Sure. One, her row of trees on your side, that you're on her side of the property line, right? So, if it's 4 feet off the property line, and then there's a critical root zone, do you have any thoughts on how you're going to protect those trees as you dig your foundation?
I'd have to do some more research on the critical root zone of Abrevieties to give any comment. The minimal research that I've done is it's for the white oak on our properties, you know, it's within the limits of the canopy, which the limits of, you know, an evergreen are you know, they touch the fence and they're maybe, you know, they hang over the fence a little bit, but I can't speak to that.
Okay. Okay.
Very intelligently, I'd be happy to follow up, but.
Okay. Okay. So here's something I got a little bit of an issue with is
Sure.
the height of the building. So
Yep.
could you explain what I get the garage, right? I get that, you know, all that kind of stuff. But the top level, could you explain the purpose of the second floor and why the justification for the height variance?
Yeah, so I think everybody's heard we live on a hill, right?
What's that?
We live on a hill. And, you know, my property's up high, you know, the house is up higher on the hill, and it's relatively, you know, you're looking up at it, you know, just similar to what Ms. Miller said. And the reason for the height of the structure is to more align it with the height of our house that's, you know, been built. Having a squatty, smaller, you know, accessory structure next to a two-story structure, just architecturally, I feel like it would diminish the potential value of the property. So we worked with an architect to, you know, have a minimal roof line. The second story is intended to be, you know, unfinished storage space above it. There's really no reason for it other than just to bring the roof line up so it architecturally aligns with the property or with the current structure of the house.
Okay. Okay.
You know, you could remove the subfloor and take the stairs out, and it'd be down to 900 square feet. We wouldn't have a third variance.
I'm sorry. Say that last part again.
You take the subfloor off of the second floor, remove the stairs, and we would not even have the third variance. I spoke with Mr. Martin about it during the application process, and, you know, felt like we'd be open about it. That, you know, due to the roof line, we wanted to be completely open with the potential of it having, you know, storage space up there. So we elected to keep it in the plans.
So my thought is there's three, you know, pretty good variances relative, right? So the one that's not needed would be the height to accomplish what you want to do, which is have space for your vehicles and your boat and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I'd like to see if anybody else has any questions for Mr. Anderson.
So, I mean, in addition to the height, I guess it's the side setback reduction and then the impervious surface, is that?
No,
So
ma'am,
that
there's
would-
no impervious surface variance.
Height.
No, I'm sorry, increase in the size of the accessory building from 25% to 41%. And then the side setback. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from council? This is still the public hearing. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak for or
Thank you,
against
Mr.
this item?
Anderson. Thank you.
Yeah, thank y'all.
Okay, come up and be sworn in, please. I'd like to note, Madam Chair, you're making our city attorney get up again now.
Oh, with a sore foot. I have a bad knee, so. Copacetic. I do.
You state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Jean, oh my gosh, I'm a loud person, but that was loud. How's this? Is this better? Jean Mankey. I live at 3388 Pretty Branch Drive, so I am a neighbor of Mr. Anderson. I'm also the Ward 6 Tree Board representative, and I'm also the chair for the Tree Board. So I have spent time today with Community Development talking about the appeal and the variance. I've also spent time talking to Cheryl. And I just have a couple questions that we may have talked about this morning, but I may have forgotten. And Cheryl and I had talked about this, but it didn't come up in her appeal, but she talked about the and I'm here just to talk about the trees. I know it's hard to believe, but she talked about the trees being affected on her piece of property, but the back of the Andersons' home and Cheryl's backs up to the Pine Tree Paramount build, but then also the Martins have a lot of wooded land back there. So one of my questions, and Cheryl and I had talked about that, is I don't understand or don't know how far back his garage is going, and there is a buffer of trees on the Pine Tree development, and then you've got the Martin development, and a lot of that water runoff, as Sean had mentioned, was from all the trees that were felled when they built the Pine Tree development, and then they had a gigantic water issue. So my question is there impact also to that buffer of trees on Pine Tree based on the distance of his garage and also maybe on the Martin property? I just wanted to raise that question because it wasn't brought up. I'm all for everybody can do what they want on their property, but we just had so much development on our block and loss of trees that just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak for or against? All right, we're going to close the public hearing portion, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Gould.
We can ask Rusty to come on back up for a minute. So there's a remedy, right, for Mr. Anderson if the variances are not granted, meaning that if he makes it an attached structure and.
Yes, theoretically, he could attach the structure, and that may reduce the number of variances down to one, and it would be the same structure. It would just have a breezeway to the house, and that has different requirements and all that. That would eliminate the height variance and the floor area variance for the structure.
So what I'm just to be frank, since we're talking, I'm not in favor of the height variance because it's not necessary for him to achieve his goal of functionality. It's an appearance request, and that appearance request has a negative impact on the neighbor. So Mr. Mayor, I can make a motion to either deny that one variance or possibly make a motion to table the whole issue. So Rusty, that'd be your opinion there, if there's worthwhile tabling it to come back with a better design.
To be honest with you, I don't think that's my decision. That would be up to the applicant as to whether or not he wants to table the request and work on coming back with a new plan for you.
Okay.
I don't know what his schedule is and when he wants to start the project. So
right.
I think it'd be better asked of him.
Can I add something to that, Rusty? It looks like on we're looking at the front elevation of this house, and if I've pulled it up on Google Earth, and we're actually behind the applicant's home, but further behind the next door neighbor's home. And I know there are, windows looking out the front, but I'm supportive of it just like it is. I mean, it's a nice looking structure. We've already got the neighbor's house 6 feet from the property, and he's asking for 7. The water is the biggest concern that I have. I guess my question would be, if he can bring the water, most of it to the front of the house, I'm fully okay with what he's got. If it's going to cause water on the neighbor's property, that's a different story. But it looks like if it comes down the driveway, it's going to be it's going to be acceptable. And we're only talking about a building that's 30 by 40, 1,200 square feet, somewhere thereabouts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's all I got.
Just a couple questions to Rusty as well. Just on the height issue, I think we talked about this at the work session as well. Is that if it was connected to the building, it wasn't an accessory structure, there wouldn't be the height issue, correct?
Right.
But that variance would be removed.
Right.
What counts as it being connected to the structure? You said a breezeway would be enough to consider that it's...
Yeah, the ordinance for an accessory structure defines what a substantial connection is, and that's either via roof or a wall. So typically how that is handled with these detached garages is creating a breezeway that's connected from the detached garage to the house.
Yeah, I mean, just on that, my thought is it's such a... The height for me is less of the concern, because it does seem to line up with where the house is, and such a small adjustment just to basically circumvent the variance doesn't seem to make sense to me. The other concern I have, and I can understand the concerns about affecting the neighbors' tree lines and that situation. I mean, we talked about the water. I think that's been covered. We're going to review that as it goes forward, as long as we've got the plan, all that. But as far as the trees are concerned, I wouldn't be happy if someone built a structure and then the trees on my property were, harmed because of that. In theory, not saying that that's obviously an intentional or whether it would even happen in this situation. But in theory, if we realize as we're building a structure that, we've damaged the root structure for those surrounding trees on the other properties, I mean, what are the repercussions? And that may be beyond the scope of, you, and maybe that's a city attorney question. I don't know. I'm just curious, what are the repercussions there? Because if that does happen, we don't want that to happen, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, what are the remedies should something like that occur?
When we amended the code, the tree ordinance in 2019, the old code used to exempt single-family lots completely. Whether you built a new house on the lot or you built a pool, detached garage, or whatever, you didn't have to follow the ordinance, which means you didn't have to get a tree survey, tree protection plan, and a tree replacement plan, and arborist report, and all that. So if you had a single-family home and you tore the home down and built a new home on that lot, you didn't have to do anything with respect to the trees. When we amended the ordinance in 2019, if you had a tear down rebuild of an existing lot on the house, now you've got to meet the tree ordinance. However, if you're building an accessory structure, building addition, pool, or garage, you're still exempt from the ordinance. And the reason they did that was to delineate between most of the tear down rebuilds were happening by home builders and developers, and then your single family homeowners are the ones that are building detached garage, pools, and adding on to their property and trying to take these houses that are built in the 60s and 70s and renovate them into modern functionality, is what I'm saying, is make them what people want today. And so at that point, the committee at that point made the decision, if it's a complete tear down rebuild, they've got to meet tree ordinance. If it's just a building addition, they're still exempt from the ordinance. So in this case, since it's a building addition, it's an accessory structure, it doesn't have to meet the requirements of the ordinance. So there's not a review of the tree plan. There's not a study, there's not a tree survey and assessment. I don't know the size of Ms. Miller's arborvitae. I just know our tree ordinance says the critical root zone is 1 linear foot in radius, or 1 linear foot per inch of diameter of the tree, and that's a radius calculation. So if it's 10 inches, it's 10 feet. But that applies to evergreens, arborvitaes, and oak trees, and maples, and every tree that is in the city. And now, do they all have the same kind of root zone and critical root zone? I don't know. We got an arborist over here, and they don't. So, they don't. So, applying a general standard for this specific case may not be relevant, and we can send our arborists out to look at it and see what's going on, but in the end, the property is still exempt from the requirements of the tree ordinance.
Right, and that was my question is, we can talk about the merits of exempting these kinds of structures from the tree ordinance, and I think it's I know we just changed it not that long ago, but maybe a worthwhile discussion as we're talking about impacting trees and how these types of structures impact that. However, with that being said, as much as we want to make sure that we're going to maintain trees and we're going to do all of that, you can't hold somebody to an ordinance that doesn't exist. Right. That's my concern with where we're at. Good or bad, whether we want to do that in the future, we've got to make a determination in the council to set a different policy if we're upset with, the way that that's going forward.
I will caution you on the issue with applying development requirements that apply to home builders and developers to citizens, because our ordinance requires bonds and so forth that a normal citizen can obtain. Mm-hmm. That they've got to go through underwriting and everything else to obtain, and it's difficult for them to do it.
Right, and I understand that, and that's why I know we went through a process with the tree ordinance, prior to my time on council. I know Councilmember Gould spent a long time on that and went through that. My point on that is, if we wanted to change that, that's something we would have to do. Right now, we can't apply something that doesn't exist as an ordinance to someone. It's whether we like it or not, it's not fair to apply something that doesn't exist to somebody who's trying to follow what our ordinances currently say. So I'll leave it at that.
If I can add just one thing, understand that this is one body, right? This is a legislative body who has the case before it to decide whether or not to grant this variance, right? So if you guys decide to grant this variance or any variance or zoning, and as a result, properties built that damages other property, that is a civil matter that's addressable elsewhere, right? So the fact that the city would allow something to be done doesn't mean that based on that they can go, whoever gets the ability to build something according to the variance, that doesn't mean they can go and damage their next door neighbor's property, right? There's a whole separate set of rules that are against that we're not involved in, right? So it's the same is true with water. If somebody builds, even if they build according to a plan, they still don't have the right to damage other people's property.
And Scott, what's the remedy for that, right? Just play that out. So building gets built, tree dies a year later or so. How do we?
Well, it just depends. It's that theoretically could be a private civil matter between the parties. It would depend on why the tree died. You know, there's a lot of things. My point is just basically that, you know, granting a variance only allows something to be used to be done that deviates from the existing code. It doesn't allow someone to damage somebody else's property in building whatever they're going to build.
Thank you, Scott.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thanks.
So I have a question for Rusty, please. So I guess one of the things is the side setback from 12 to 7. Is it possible to build it within the without that side variance, the 12 feet? I mean, within 12 feet?
That'd be a question for Mr. Anderson, but ultimately, I think his rationale is for the variances to stay away from the 30-inch oak that's in the middle of his backyard. So if you move it over 5 feet to meet the setback, then you're encroaching further into the root zone of that tree.
Okay, his tree, right?
Yeah, that's his tree that's in his yard.
Thank you.
Okay. If you're satisfied that we've had enough discussion on this, Mr. Gould, I'll entertain a motion.
Zoning and variance is fascinating. They are, seriously, right? Just because it's taken for a second here, you have a really nice design, but it has potential impact on a neighbor, and they're difficult things. Even just for the questions up here, you hear a variety of different perspectives, right? So there's really not a right or wrong, but it's an approach. So one of the key things for me is to stay as close as we can to our ordinances, unless there's a compelling reason to change. And I think for the use of the garage, it's more than a reasonable use. And you've done, Mr. Anderson, you've done a lot of things to help mitigate, such as the drainage plan and things like that. The height with the second story, it's an appearance question, and so it's a positive appearance for you, but potentially a negative appearance for your neighbor. So it's not a critical piece of the functionality of the building. So that's my approach on this. So maybe Mr. Cocker, you can tell me if what I'm going to suggest is okay. I'm going to make a motion to approve the side setback, the percentage of square foot relative to the primary dwelling, but move to deny the height.
Now,
And
maybe,
Mr. Anderson.
maybe we'd have the applicant up, and would he even be interested in continuing with this if that was the case?
Sure. Just Mr. Martin and I have spoken about this exact thing. We could have got rid of the two variances prior to getting here. I mean, I would just caution you that adding the breezeway to it, which multiple people in Forest Hills have done, multiple people in the city of Smyrna have done, adds more impermeable surface, which leads to the water issue. So, I mean, I could reapply tomorrow with an attached breezeway that will add an immediate additional impermeable surface. So, while I understand that your stance on the second story, I did work, for what it's worth, in my preliminary research of this multiple years ago about the median roof height and the accessory height, and we did work to bring it down. I would like to keep the upstairs for unfinished attic space and to align it with the rest of the home. Again, I think it's the visual appearance is preference, as you mentioned. I just would leave it with that. We could come immediately back with, a breezeway that would add impermeable surface. So that's all I had to say. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Any other questions from Mr. Anderson? Mr. Cochran, so my proposed motion, is that acceptable from a legal perspective?
Yeah, I mean, the easier way, I think, to do it would be just to vote on, if you're going to do that, to vote on them one by one, because it'd be hard to do that. You voted to approve 2 and deny 1. Is that all right? Can you follow it better that way? If they vote one by one?
Just a minute for the clerk to accommodate Mr. Gould.
Is that okay? Heather, that works for you? Okay.
We can do by voice vote or by hand. Mr. Gould, why don't you make your motion, and we'll do by a show of hands, voice vote.
Okay, item 4C 336. First, motion to approve variance 1 of reduce side setback from 12 feet to 7 feet of detached garage.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Welch. All those in favor, please vote. Raise your hand by show of hands, please. By show of hands, please. Okay. And that's approved 4-1 with Councilwoman Wilkinson voting in the negative. All right, Mr. Gould, second motion, please.
Item 4C 2021-336, variance number 2. Increase accessory building size from 25% to 41%.
Okay, have a motion. So what is your motion here?
To approve, sorry.
To approve. You have a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Wagner. All those in favor, please vote. That's approved 4-1 with Councilwoman Wilkinson voting in the negative. All right, Mr. Gould.
Item 4C 2021-336, motion to deny increase of accessory building height from 15 feet to 18.8 feet.
Have a motion to deny the third variance. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Wheaton. All those in favor of Mr. Gould's motion to deny, raise your hand. That's approved 3-2 with Councilman Welch and Councilman Wagner voting in the negative. All right. With that, we'll move on to the next item. We are now on privilege licenses, which I'm sure the new business owners at the Old Vittles location are very happy that we're finally to this agenda item. Item A, license 2021-07, privilege license request, license 2021-07, beer and wine, retail pouring, 2579 South Cobb Drive Southeast, Kay's Cuisine. Boy, that name is definitely, I'm going to botch it, I'm sure. Kev Adidi is the owner and agent applicant. I should have practiced that before I came up here, huh? Ms. Wilkinson, this is in your ward. I'd like to invite the applicant back up and any questions that you have. Okay.
I think I've been trying to practice the name. I think it's Kewe Adidi.
I'm going to need you to say it for me so I can get it right.
She's right, Kewe Adidi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So did you read this already or the? Yeah. Oh, okay.
This is just the pouring license, beer and wine for the property that we approved the variance for earlier.
And Ms. Aditi will be the registered agent responsible for the sale of alcohol at 2579 South Cobb Drive. Ms. Aditi has been given a copy of the alcoholic beverage ordinance and attended the mandatory alcohol awareness workshop. A background investigation conducted by the Smyrna Police Department failed to reveal information that would preclude the issuance of this license. Ms. Aditi has agreed to abide by the guidelines set forth by the City of Smyrna ordinance governing the sale of alcohol. The privilege license request, license 2021-07, beer and wine, retail pouring, 2579 South Cobb Drive, Kay's Cuisine. Ms. Aditi is the owner and agent applicant.
Ms. Wilkinson.
So, Ms. Aditi, you went through the City of Smyrna's process through for the privilege license for the alcohol, pouring of the alcohol, and you understand everything that's been presented to you. And I just will also say that the City of Smyrna takes the serving of alcohol very seriously and to minors, and sometimes they do conduct undercover checks, and you understand all that? Okay, all right, thank you. Oh, I do want to just mention something else that I didn't mention before, but it is a pouring license for beer and wine, and just let the public know that it's not for liquor, but just beer and wine. And Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
At this time, I'll move to approve 5 privilege license for 5A LIC 2021-07. The privilege license request for the pouring of beer and wine, retail pouring at 2579 South Cobb Drive, Kay's Cuisine. Kewe Aditi is the owner and agent applicant.
Have a motion by Ms. Wilkinson, seconded by Dr. Wheaton. All those in favor, please vote. And our machines are working now, I believe. That's approved 5-0. Thank you. We're looking forward to you do business in Smyrna. All right, item 6 is formal business. Item A, Resolution 2021-05, resolution to adopt the hazard mitigation plan as attached and authorize the mayor to sign and execute all related documents. Mr. Bennett, the background, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Smyrna Emergency Management Agency, in conjunction with the Cobb County Emergency Management Agency, updates our hazard mitigation plan every 5 years. The purpose of this in-depth plan is to identify natural and man-made disasters, to compile a detailed inventory of critical facilities, to assess potential losses, and to develop mitigation goals and objectives. These goals and objectives provide a baseline and justification to meet eligibility requirements for future hazard mitigation grant funding. Emergency management staff recommends adoption by resolution the hazard mitigation plan as attached and authorize the mayor to sign and execute all related documents.
Thank you. This item was discussed and presented in our work session. I'd entertain a motion at this time. So moved by Mr. Wagner, second by Mr. Welch. All those in favor, please vote. It's approved 5-0. Thank you. Item B, Resolution 2021-06. This is a public hearing. Approval of Resolution 2021-06. Continuance of the moratorium as previously approved on March 15th through September 15th, 2021 on the acceptance of rezoning and variance applications seeking to develop or otherwise use the property as a townhome or for a townhome development from September 16th, 2021 to March 15th, 2022, and authorize the mayor to sign and execute all related documents. Mr. Bennett, any background, please?
Yes, sir. The City Council has received complaints regarding the lack of development and architectural standards for townhome developments. The moratorium continues to provide the city the opportunity to evaluate existing design standards for new townhome units and to consider amendments to the zoning ordinances regarding townhome developments. The request is to continue the previously approved moratorium, which was Resolution 2021-01. It ran from March 15th, 2021 through September 15th, 2021. On the acceptance of rezoning and variance applications for townhome developments starting September 16th, 2021, and extending through and including March 15th, 2022, unless the moratorium is terminated sooner by an act of the City Council. Community Development recommends the approval of Resolution 2021-06, a continuance of the moratorium as previously approved under Resolution 2021-01, March 15th, 2021 through September 15th, 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Is there any discussion? All right, I'll entertain a motion. Oh, sorry, this is a public hearing. Man, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody here to speak for or against this item? Please come up and be sworn in. We have one. You've already been sworn in. Ms. Martin?
Yeah, we got to
Swear again.
All right. Tried to save you a little time. Mr. Cochran?
Good evening. My name is Sean Martin. I live at 2884 Anderson Circle, and I can tell you that I'm very proud for this moratorium. I think that when we decide that design matters in our city, that our community matters in our city, and that we should put a pause on certain things, I applaud the leadership. So I just wanted to say thank you. And I think that that was a really smart decision. That's it.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else wish to speak for or against this item? All right, we'll close the public hearing. And now I'll entertain a motion.
So
I'll move to approve. Mr. Gould, second. Anybody second? Ms. Wilkinson. All right, all those in favor, please vote. And that's approved 4-1 with Councilman Wagner voting in the negative. Item 6 is ordinance 2021-15. It's a public hearing, approval of ordinance 2021-15, a code amendment to sections 6-2 and 6-85 of the city's alcohol beverage ordinance to increase the percentage of the alcohol sales for private dog parks from 25% to 50% of the gross revenue of the business. Mr. Bennett, any background, please?
Yes, sir. On May 17th, 2021, the City Council approved code amendments to the city's alcoholic beverage ordinance to allow the on-premise sales and consumption of alcoholic beverages at private dog parks by a vote of 6-0. The original ordinance limited alcohol sales for on-premise consumption to 25% of the gross revenue of the business. Community Development has worked with potential private dog park business owners, and they have expressed that the limit on the alcohol sales to 25% of the gross revenue makes the business model unviable. The potential business owners have recommended increasing the maximum allowable alcohol sales to 50% of the gross revenue of the business. Community Development recommends approval of the proposed code amendment.
Any discussion amongst council before I call the public hearing? All right, this is a public hearing. Anybody who wishes to speak for or against this item, please come forward, be sworn in. All right, if you say your name and address for the record, please.
Harry Schnabel, 2410 Grayhurst Way, Southwest Smyrna, Georgia. Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you for having me tonight. I want to just say that as a novice in this business, I apologize for coming back up here and asking for more on this. It came to my knowledge when I went down to speak with the owners of the dog park that we're modeling this after, that if I was at 25%, there would be no way that I could make this work. That I would die a certain death. And so before I started spending any more money on this project, I came to Rusty, I called Mayor Norton, and asked if there was a way that I could meet in front of you guys again. So I'm just asking that that you guys will approve this, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Any comments, any questions?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say that I believe that this aligns with the same as our restaurants. Is that correct, Mr. Martin? I think.
Yes, ma'am. The restaurants limit it to 50% of their gross revenue.
Okay, thank you.
Timeline for the project?
So if we get approval tonight, we can start moving forward with the actual site plans pretty much immediately. So
It's been a long time in the making, I know.
yes, sir.
Yep. Any other comments, questions? Anybody else want to speak for or against this? Mr. Murphy.
Sean Murphy, 3282 Lee Street, Forest Hills. I'm also the consultant on this project, but just speaking personally, you guys are all fairly sophisticated, and you've seen these various developments come in front of you in Smyrna, and you know that when you try to do business, especially restaurants, alcohol becomes very important, as I think there was an applicant here earlier, as they made it clear that beer and wine sales were important for their success. When you're doing a private dog park, really the only thing you can sell when you're not operating a full restaurant is some snacks and maybe some paraphernalia, some leashes and T-shirts and things like that. And I think it's pretty easy to see that it's quite difficult to try to make that business model work, just selling a few hats and T-shirts and memberships at $10 or whatever they're going to be. So I think it's imperative, and my own research and helping Harry out and calling some of these other parks and stuff basically turned up the same kind of information, that if we can't get 50% of the revenue from alcohol sales, it's got a very slim chance of being successful. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would want to speak for or against this item? All right, with that, I'll close the public hearing. Any more comments, discussion from council? All right, I'll entertain a motion. Move to approve. Mr. Wagner moves to approve. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Welch. All those in favor, please vote. And that's approved 5-0. Congratulations. Looking forward to seeing what that ends up being. That's going to be awesome.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, item D, 6D on a formal business ordinance 2021-16. This is a public hearing. Approval of ordinance 2021-16 to amend the Code of Ordinances, Section 86-1, 86-2.1, 2.2, and 2.3 as it relates to solid waste, and authorize the mayor to sign and execute all related documents. Mr. Bennett, the background, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. These amendments are intended to offer clarity to the city's Code of Ordinances regarding solid waste. This includes the addition of some definitions as well as services provided and fees for large item pickup. Section 86-1 amends Section 86-1 of the City Code of Ordinances to add the following definition of curbside. Curbside means the side of the pavement bordered by the curb that is on the property owner's side of the curb line. Section 86-2.1, prohibited solid waste, amends Section 82-2.1 to add items containing refrigerant to the list of prohibited solid waste so that said provision reads as follows. The following items shall be prohibited for disposal within the city: hazardous waste, any item containing refrigerant, paint, rubber tires, yard waste, inert building material, and motor oil. These items are to be disposed of at the appropriate recycling facility or approved landfill. Section 86-2.2, services provided, amend Section 86-2.2A to change the collection from twice weekly to once weekly. In Section A, garbage collection, the city provides once weekly collection of garbage and dry solid waste. Section D, to change the chipping program to a yard waste program and change the required size of items so that each provision reads as follows. Item D, yard waste program, the city will provide weekly collection of small limbs, shrubs, and bagged leaves and branches. This material is to be no more than 6 inches in diameter, no greater than 5 feet in length, and must be separated from the garbage and placed at the street curb in piles no more than 5 feet high, 5 feet wide, and 5 feet long. Yard waste bags may not exceed 20 pounds. Each property is limited to 20 bags per pickup. Bags must be composed of recycled paper. Any chip material will be made available to the citizens of Smyrna at no cost at the City Public Works Complex. The city will not pick up logs or stumps. Section 86-2.3, charge for pickup, furniture, and large appliances. Amend Section 86-2.3 to change the rate for collection of furniture and large items from $10 per item to $25 per item, so that such provision reads as follows. The city will impose a $25 fee per item for the collection of large furniture such as sofas, beds, and tables, and large appliances such as refrigerators, hot water heaters, and stoves placed at the street curb. Approval of Ordinance 2021-16 to amend the Code of Ordinances, Section 86-1, 86-2.1, 86-2.2, and 86-2.3 as it relates to solid waste, and authorize the mayor to sign and execute all related documents.
Mr. Bennett, thank you for that thorough background. Is there any discussion amongst the council?
I have some questions for clarification, please. So the I thought I heard something about they wouldn't pick up things that had refrigerant in them, but then I heard you say at the end that they would continue to pick up the refrigerators for a fee?
Correct.
For a fee. What kinds of things would it not include then with the refrigerant?
As far as refrigerant?
Yes, like
Air conditioning units, automobile air conditioning units, things that have the refrigerant that would make the air conditioners work.
okay, like Freon.
Freon, correct.
Yeah, but refrigerators used to have Freon, didn't they? If they don't now, I don't know. But anyway, that was,
Sure they're working with
okay,
the
I'm glad to hear that they're picking up the refrigerators. And then the other thing is the limit on the number of bags. Does that mean like in the fall when the leaves are coming and some of these houses have 30 bags that you're only going to pick up 20? Is that?
20 bags per pickup.
Well, I do have concerns about that because when people take the time, and there are lots of places that have 30 bags. We used to have the leaf truck that would vacuum them, and now, I've seen many a time in that time period when there are many more than 20, and they get wet and then they get scattered, and I just have concerns if we limit it to 20 and then 20, and I mean, I've seen it like more than once. I mean, myself included, where we've had, 30 this week, and 2 weeks later another 30. So, anyway, I didn't realize that, but that would be my one concern about the limit on the number of bags. Does anyone else have a concern about that?
None. Any other comments? All right. Mr. Gould, why don't you handle this item, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Steve.
Move to approve item 60 ORD 2021.
No, it's not over here. No.
Is it, Scott?
I mean, it's not legal. It's been advertised with, but it's not required to be. But if you can have, there's no prohibition against it. If you
Okay.
want to hear.
Is there anybody who wishes to speak for or against this item? I'd invite them to come up now.
Especially the mayor.
Okay. Please be sworn in.
Up again. This is unbelievable.
Please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Montserrat Knowlton. I live at 1367 Poplar Point, Smyrna 30082. And I just follow the same concept that Ms. Wilkinson was talking about. I do live on a townhouse development, but I happen to be at the end unit, and in my development, I have to handle my own yard, whatever, the mowing, the cutting of trees, the raking of leaves, excuse me. And I have very, very large trees. A few years back, I had to cut a huge oak tree because a storm split it, and I had to cut it. It cost me $4,000. So, in any event, when it's time for leaf removal, I used to appreciate the truck that came and vacuumed the leaves. That was just a wonderful service. Back in 2007, 2008, when property values went down and taxes, consequently, the collection of taxes went down, they did away with that, which I understand. However, we are at a time when we are building more and more and more here in Smyrna. So taxes will be collected, and people, we still have the trees, and we still have lots and lots of leaves, and this only happens in the fall, and that service was only provided in the fall. But still, you either have to provide with a service of the truck coming and vacuuming, or just don't limit the number of bags. It's just, I mean, it's heavy labor to put all those leaves in bags. And, you get into it and you do it, and it's done until maybe a month later. But limiting the number of bags does not make sense to any property owner that has lots of trees and lots of leaves. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak for or against this item? All right, we will close the public hearing sessions, and I will turn it over to Mr. Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve item 6D ORD 2021-16, approval of ordinance 2021-16 to amend Code of Ordinances as it relates to solid waste and authorize the mayor to sign and execute all related documents.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Dr. Wheaton. All those in favor, please vote. That's approved 4-1 with Councilwoman Wilkinson voting in the negative. All right, the next item is item E, approval of the agreement between Cobb County and the City of Smyrna for non-exclusive temporary construction easement to construct improvements within the Oakdale Road right-of-way and authorize the mayor to sign and execute all related documents. I'm almost afraid to ask. Mr. Bennett, the background, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This non-exclusive temporary construction easement agreement, called the agreement, is made and entered into on August 16th, 2021, as defined herein, by and between Cobb County, Georgia, a political subdivision of the state of Georgia, and the City of Smyrna, Georgia, a municipal corporation of the state of Georgia, acting by and through its mayor and city council for the purpose of allowing the city to install 6 medians within Oakdale Road right-of-way in areas owned by the county. The city and the county may be referred to singularly as party or jointly as parties. Staff recommends approval of the agreement between Cobb County and the City of Smyrna for non-exclusive temporary construction easement to construct improvements within the Oakdale Road right-of-way and authorize the mayor to sign and execute all related documents.
This has been a long time coming, improvements on Oakdale Road. It's something that Councilman Wheaton has worked very hard on, and I'm going to turn it over to him now for any comments.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a really critical for safety, for some just beautification, and really to make this area look better, be more mobile, and even for pedestrian safety as well. I think there's some really good opportunities to connect residents with various parts of the city's resources through that area. So I'm very excited to see this coming here, and I'm happy to approve when time.
Any other discussion? All right, it's appropriate time.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve item 6E, agreement 2021-01, the approval of agreement between Cobb County and the City of Smyrna as previously read.
All right, we have a motion and a second by Mr. Wagner. All those in favor, please vote. And that's approved 5-0. Thank you. Item F is approval to enter into a contract on the Omnia Partners Cooperative with Mansfield Oil, Gainesville, Georgia, to provide the city with gasoline and diesel fuel and authorize the mayor to sign and execute all related documents. Mr. Bennett, the background, please.
Yes, sir. The City of Smyrna has been a member of the Gwinnett County Fuel Co-op with several other agencies since approximately 2012. At that time, Mansfield Oil was the awarded vendor. Gwinnett County awarded a new contract to primary contractor James River Solutions in February 2021, and since that time, we have continued participation. Service delivery, price, and billing consistencies has continued to decline. Mansfield Oil has provided a solution on the Omnia Partners Cooperative.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. This was presented to us in our work session by our public works staff. Is there any discussion? Dr. Wheaton, you want to handle this one?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve item 6F as previously read.
Have a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Gould. All those in favor, please vote. And it's approved 5-0. Thank you. Item G, 2021-355, approval to award RFP 22-003, water and sewer system installations to the lowest bidder, Ardito Construction Company, Inc., at 1290 Austell Road, Marietta, Georgia, 30008, and secondary contractor KM Davis Contracting Company, Incorporated, 3259 Austell Road, Marietta, Georgia, 30008. Mr. Bennett, the background, please.
Yes, sir. The city requested line item pricing for various water and sewer system installations on an annual basis. 5 bids were received, and the bid tabulation is attached. The city's intent is to contract with a primary and secondary contractor for installation, repair, and replacement projects. Ardito Construction Company, Incorporated, is selected as the primary contractor based on the line item pricing and prior experience. KM Davis Contracting Company, Incorporated, is selected as secondary contractor, and Wade Coots Company, Incorporated, as tertiary alternate contractor. It is the recommendation of Purchasing and Public Works to award the water and sewer system installation work RFP 22-003 to the lowest bidder, Ardito Construction Company, Incorporated. KM Davis Contracting Company, Incorporated, is selected as secondary contractor, and Wade Coots Company, Incorporated, as alternate.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Any discussion on this item? All right, seeing none, I'll turn it over to Councilman Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve item 6G, 2021-355.
Have a motion, seconded by Dr. Wheaton. All those in favor, please vote. And that's approved 5-0. Thank you. Item H, 2021-372, adoption of the Smyrna Connects Transit Analysis and Feasibility Study as presented to the Mayor and Council on September 3rd, 2020 at the Committee of the Whole meeting, and authorized the Mayor to sign and execute all related documents. And this study was presented to us as kind of a menu of options for future consideration. This does not obligate us in any way to choose any of these options regarding mobility and transit, and any proposal in the future would be brought before the public for comment before we had any action. I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. But what this does is open up the opportunity for federal and state funding for any kind of transit initiative, and also for our work on South Cobb Drive. So with that, I'll open it up for any comments.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just echo that sentiment. This is really a tremendous opportunity, and really does connect well with a lot of things that are already going on in the region separately. So it really opens up potential resources to get some things done in a really exciting way, but also acknowledging the reality that certainly, communication with the public is a critical component of any projects moving forward. This really is an avenue and a gateway to making some things potentially happen.
Any other comments? Dr. Wheaton, you want to make a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With that, I'll make a motion to approve item 6H, the adoption of the Smyrna Connect study, item 2021-372, as previously read.
We have a motion seconded by Mr. Wagner. All those in favor, please vote. That's approved 5-0. Thank you. Item 7 is commercial building permits. We have none. Item 8 is the consent agenda. Mr. Bennett, can you please read the consent agenda for council approval?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Item A, approval of the July 15th, 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes. Item B, MIN 2021-55, approval of the August 2nd, 2021 pre-council meeting minutes. Item C, 2021-56, approval of the August 2nd, 2021 Mayor and Council meeting minutes. Item D, approval of the cancellation of the September 2nd, 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting and the September 7th, 2021 pre-council and Mayor and Council meeting due to a lack of a quorum. Item E, approve the request for the extended work hours and the road closure to through traffic on Roswell Street on Saturday, August 28th, 2021, from 7 a.m. through 7 p.m., weather permitting, as requested by Lano Contractors for pouring of concrete for medians. Item F, approval to purchase a 2022 Ford F-550 chassis with Altec AT-37G telescoping, articulating, continuous rotation aerial device through Sourcewell contract number 012418-ALT, Altac Industries Incorporated, 210 Inverness Center Drive, Birmingham, Alabama, 35242, funded by the FY22 CIP Vehicle Replacement Fund for a total cost of $118,105, and authorize the mayor to execute any related documents. Item G, approval to purchase one 2021 Ford Explorer XLT administrative use from Wade Ford, 3860 South Cobb Drive, Smyrna, Georgia 30080, and one 2021 Ford Explorer base administrative use from Jim Ellis Ford, 7555 Roswell Road, Atlanta, Georgia 30350 for the police department as part of the fiscal year 22 vehicle replacement fund at a total cost not to exceed $70,146, and authorize the mayor to sign and execute any related documents. And finally, item H, approval to award the contract for RFQ 22-004 for concrete work to the primary contractor, Braswell Concrete LLC, 4620 Lost Mountain Drive, Powder Springs, Georgia 30127, and secondary contractor, Lano Contractors LLC, 4028 Townsend Lane, Atlanta, Georgia 30346.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Dr. Wheaton, seconded by Mr. Gould. All those in favor, please vote. Mr. Bennett, while we're voting, you want to read the first two lines of F again?
No, sir.
That's approved 5-0. Thank you. Item 9 is ward and committee reports. We'll start tonight with Mr. Austin Wagner.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. No report this evening.
Mr. Welch.
No report this evening.
Ms. Wilkinson.
No report this evening.
Mr. Gould.
Just a quick note that a few of us had a chance to participate in the second round of the Racial Trust Initiative this weekend, which was just really a fascinating event and chance to get to know some folks around the city and spend some time with people that we've met, but got to know much better. And look forward to the next round when that happens later this year. We all come together and talk about rolling this program out to the broader community. So it was a positive time.
I echo those comments. That was that's a program that we stole from the city of LaGrange. It's been extremely successful there in improving race relations in that community. I think it's going to do the same here. I participated as well, and that was a really good exercise. Dr. Wheaton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just echoing as well, Councilman Gould's comments, really positive weekend, really good discussion. Emotional, hard, but also positive. I can see a lot of good coming from it. Also, just want to, wish residents good safety over the next day or so. We got a lot of weather coming with the impending tropical storm, the remnants of which are kind of slated to roll through our area right about now. And throughout the night into tomorrow. So, good luck, and certainly if you have any troubles, feel free to reach out, whether it's power or water or any other issues. There you go.
Thank you, Dr. Wheaton. Joe, anything?
No, sir, I have said enough.
Mr. Cochran.
Same here.
Ms. Penny? Ms. Heather? All right. Show cause hearings is item 10. We have none. Item 11 is citizen input. Nobody signed up tonight. And with that, if there's no more business to be brought before this body, we are adjourned at 9:04. Thank you. Make sure to handle the CMA, and I'll come in when I can. Yes.
I already did. Oh, no, I didn't. I didn't sign that one. Ugh.
Wayne, I blame you.
He blames me. Would you have already gone home? Would you have gone if,
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Originals for the county.
Oh, you need 3 originals?
Once the mayor signs them.
Okay.
Okay.
Unless you want to do that. Hold on.
I've signed one.
Yeah, Scott signed one. I've got 2 originals.